So thank you so much for joining us today. It is on the dot of 9:30. I know we've got a few more coming in, but we will get going because we have got a lot to get through today. So welcome to this morning's webinar on the 6 steps to building a business that can work without you. So I hope you're ready for some fast-paced and interactive learning. There's going to be no snoozing on this webinar. Those who've been on my previous webinars will know that. So let me move forwards to our next slide. So a little bit about me. Some of you I know me very well, and some of you I think this is our first encounter, so great to meet you. A little bit about me. So my career started in corporate land. I did a good 23 plus years with mega multinational FMCGs like Diageo, PepsiCo, so lovely products. Also had a spell with GE, so they're very much around their process and efficiency and risk management. So huge corporate career in the HR function, partnering with the GMs and the VPs of those businesses. And then about 6 years ago, I had my entrepreneurial seizure. For any of those who know the E-Myth book, if you don't know the E-Myth book, you should do, grab it, the E-Myth by Michael Gerber. And I decided I wanted to move out of corporate and into SME. So I started my ActionCOACH franchise and have been doing this ever since, supporting local businesses. So what I bring to you today is a real sort of meld of that corporate experience across all the functions, now blended with a good smattering of experience across a whole range of SMEs. So this will be relevant to you, I can assure you. Now, I have been asked to record this webinar. We are set up, so actually it's only my little pic in the corner, so I hope that's okay with you all. You won't be visible, so no need to worry about that. Please do contribute. Let's have lots of comments and chats and questions in the chat box. My colleague Simon is going to be our compere, and he will be watching the chat box and raising any questions as you go at the appropriate moment. The last piece of housekeeping, I think, is to say I'm very happy to share the recording afterwards. I don't share my slides. So you need to make lots of notes, which is actually the best way of learning. So write some notes, make them as creative as you can. That's the best way to retain it. And any questions you've got, pop them in the chat box. And one last point is, and I'm sure most of you already do have this, but have you got your phone handy? Because yes, this is the one webinar where I'm actually going to ask you to grab your phone. So do have your phones handy, and that will become apparent why shortly. So let's crack on. So ActionCOACH, we define a successful business as a business that is commercial, it's profitable, obviously it's an enterprise, it's a business, and it works or can work without you, which is a really interesting stage to think about. Some of you, in fact, we'll find out shortly where you're all at, but you know, people starting the business are not always thinking about how they're finishing their business. But ultimately, a business has most value when it can work without you. Doesn't have to, but it's in a point where you can choose whether you're working in it or not. And that's very much what we're going to be covering today, is what needs to be true, what needs to be in place for that to happen. So one of my favorite formulas that we talk about is this one: be times do equals have. And in the context of having a business that can work without you, you need to be thinking about what do you need to do and how do you need to be in order to have a business that can work without you. And it is a combination of those two things. You can see there's a multiplication sign there, and we all know that from our junior school maths, what happens when you multiply a 0 by something, whatever else, it always ends up as a 0. So we can't be all about the doing and not thinking about who we're being, because we'll end up with nothing. We can't do it the other way around. It tends to be more people get carried away with the actions, do, without stopping to think who they're being. So if we want to have a business that runs without you, you need to be doing the things that a business owner would be doing, running a business rather than being in it, and you need to be the leader. And it's interesting to see who you see yourself as at the moment. Do you see yourself as a consultant, as a designer, or are you being the MD? Because that's what you're going to need to do to have a business that can work without you. So the model we're going to go through is this 6-step model. And I'm going to talk about it very in summary now, and then we're going to talk about each stage later. So don't worry if you can't scribble down the entire model, we're going to go step by step through it. But it starts at the bottom with mastery. Mastery are the stages, there's 4 elements to mastery we're going to look at. And this is about having the right foundations in place for your business. Now, we might start with a set of foundations and build a business of a certain size. Think about when you're building a house. You don't build a house on shaky foundations. You make sure there's solid foundations. But the foundations we need for a bungalow might be sufficient for that. But if we decide to put 2 stories on top of it and a bit of an extension out to the side, as we grow your business, those foundations may no longer be enough. They might not be sufficient. You might need to revisit mastery to make sure that actually the basics are now of a sufficient robustness and scale and sophistication to manage your business at the scale it now is. So sometimes I find actually what was in place when the business started is still in place, and we need to upgrade that for the scale and the ambition that the business owner now has. When we have secured a solid base and we've got this stable, controlled business, we can then move up to niche, which is our sales and marketing layer. This is where we're really accelerating the growth of the business in terms of revenues and profits, because we know about revenue. Revenue is for vanity, profit for sanity. So niche is where we find out the most successful ways for you to build the business and the profits. When you've got that into a really grooved way, then we're able to step up to leverage, which is where we're building in efficiency, doing more with less. And finally, when we know the best, most efficient way of doing things, that's the ideal time to really expand our team. Now, life's not nice and simple like this, and many businesses just don't work without a team. You couldn't run a hotel with 1 team member. So sometimes we have to take a vertical slice through to ensure we've got the right pieces in place in order to successfully bring on board a team. As you build the team, and I'm going to give you the secret answer here right at the beginning about how you have a business which works without you, it's by having a general manager in place. But that's typically the last employee to come on board. When the general manager's in place, you, the business owner, can step back and you end up with a business running without you. You can then focus on synergy, which is how we create more, how we duplicate, how we do more with what you've got there, and then step up into the results, which is basically our wealth management layer. Happy days. But we're going to start at mastery because that's where everything starts. And as we go through this model, one thing to be really aware of is that this model works for every business. So we've got all kinds of businesses on the call this morning, which is fantastic, from recruitment consultants to garden designers to window installers to everything going on here. So The same model works for every business, which also means when you've learned how to run one business successfully, then you can simply replicate it, the thinking and the stages and the process, into another business, which is exactly what Mr. Branson has done across his Virgin portfolio. So we're going to start at mastery, but before we get too far into mastery, I would like to find out where we've got our audience. So where are you at in your business? And this is where you're going to pick up your phone. So for some of you, you might be new to Menti, some of you might know this, but if you pick up your phone and just put in the top, as it says at the top of the slide here, just put in your browser www.menti.com. It will then prompt you for a code, which is the one we've got here at the top of the slide. So go to menti.com, pop in your code, somebody's already in there, that's fantastic, and then decide where you're at. Are you a startup, you're just getting going? Are you in those first few years, it can be, where it feels like it's hard yards and you are just putting in a lot of effort, not quite seeing the results yet, but you're going for it? Have you got into a bit of a glide? We are now powering on, we've got momentum, we've got a customer base, we are multiplying through. Or are you at the point where you're going, right, now I need to think about exit. I've got, we've built something up, now it's time to think about how we move on and exit. So this is where I'm going to demand full participation. We have got 30 people on the call at the moment and I've got 17 responses, 18, it's coming up. So let's get into the high 20s. Everybody get on their phones and get voting, because that really tells me where you're at, and then I can make sure we're talking accordingly as we go through this webinar. So good, 21. Oh, there's well, actually there's 3 of us from my team, so we're not going to be on here, but few more people, let's get those phones, go run and grab them and see where we get to. But what I'm seeing here is the majority of you are in the hard yards and the powering on, with a handful of startups and an exiter. So we've got the full gamut here, which is fantastic. What is actually really good, it's great, we've got the startups here, because as we will see on the next slide, the first piece on mastery, which actually often gets missed, is working out where you're going. We call it destination mastery. The question I would ask everybody is, when is your business finished? When is your business finished? What does it look like when it's finished? What year is it finished? Have you even thought about when it's finished? And some of you are just starting, but actually thinking about, what do you want to achieve with the business? What do you want the business to give you? What are you building for? Are you building to create a business that you can sell at some point for a lump sum? Are you creating a business to pass on to a family? Are you creating a business for passive income? That's your pension. How big are you going? Are we going national, regional, global? What does it look like? And you know what? If we don't stop and plan where we want to end up, there's no way we're ever going to end up. How can you end up somewhere where you haven't planned to be? So the only way you are going to fulfill those ambitions is to think about where you need to end up. So just have a think. I'd be curious, actually, pop in the chat box. What kind of plans do you have in place? Covey was very wise in his 7 habits of highly effective people. Begin with the end in mind. For those of you on the power up phase, even those of you in the hard yards, it's worth remembering, why did you start this business? Was it because you felt you were fed up working for some idiot boss and you could do better on your own? Why fill the profit pockets of someone else when you could fill your own? Maybe you wanted the flexibility. family and life was at the stage where you wanted some flexibility. Maybe you wanted more choices. And then reflect, have you got what you've now, are you getting what you wanted when you started it up in the first place? Because often we don't, we end up on some kind of business hamster wheel. It ends up, it's not as profitable as we thought initially. And certainly we're working even more hours than what we were doing before. So where do you want to be? Why did you set it up? What kind of plans have you got? Who's working to a 12-month plan? Who has, we'll get onto the forecasting and financial mastery actually, but having a plan about where you want to be at the end of this year. We break it down to, so that's for me, your operational plan. Then we have an activity plan for 90 days. Have you got a 90-day activity plan? Because if you don't set out what you want to achieve, it's highly unlikely you're going to achieve it. So I've gone a bit deeper on destination mastery because it's usually the piece that is missing the most. One other aspect to destination mastery is not only planning where you want the business to get to, it's planning how you want it to get there. What's the culture that you want to have in your business? Because every business has a culture. It either evolves from whoever you recruit or you design it. And I can assure you designing it and having the culture you want is definitely the preferred option. So let's look at the other aspects of mastery. We've talked destination mastery. We also have money mastery. Are we mastering our money? This starts with keeping a track of your money coming in, money out, having a P&L that you are managing, having a forecast. What are we predicting for the year ahead? Where do you want to end up? What's the revenue? What's the profit? We can only get to that knowing what the expenses are planned to be. Are you looking at your P&L monthly? Those of you on a nice system like a Xero or QuickBooks, you know, it literally is a pressing of the button that says P&L, choose the month. But many people are not doing this. So looking at your P&L each month and then taking the right action to make sure you're moving and keeping profitable. Mastering cash flow. Are you tracking your cash flow? You know what? Most businesses go bust not because of profitability, but because of cash flow. So even if you're in that startup phase, be conscious, get into those good practices now, because then when you're scaled up, it will be natural and it won't suddenly come and kind of bite you in the behind when you realize cash flow wasn't so critical when it's small numbers. When it gets to big numbers, it can be life or death for your business. And also I put it under money mastery, but it is around the whole control of your business, is having a set of key performance indicators. Do you know, it's like having the dashboard. Your car dashboard tells you the health of your car, from engine temperature to tire pressure, tells you everything nowadays, to speed, of course, and revs and all the rest of it, mileage. Do you have that for your business to know that everything's on track? What's meant to be going up is going up, and what meant to be coming down is coming down. Time mastery. Now, I suspect those people who are into the powering up phase will have done an element at least of time mastery, because this is being very mindful about where you're spending your time. Are you spending your time where you can create most value for your business? And are you consistently spending your time there? Are you being effective? Are you being efficient in the use of your time? Or are you in a kind of procrastination hole at sometimes? So we have lots of different techniques, from default diaries to frog lists, to help you really get control of your time, so you are getting things done in the most effective way and making sure you, the owner, are spending your time in the most effective way. And finally, here we've got delivery mastery. Now, this is not about physically delivering your product or service. This is about, in terms of brum brum in a delivery van, this is about delivering it to your customer, the customer experience that you enable. Any business that is going to be successful and grow to the point it can work without you needs a steady flow of customers, and that only happens when you're delivering a great experience. Because you need referrals, repeat customers, etc. And there's no point, and it's in the mastery layer, because there's no point in investing in sales and marketing if you've got a leaky bucket at the bottom because people are not happy with the experience they're getting, or the experience isn't consistent. You know, as consumers now, business consumers or individual consumers, we're very picky, aren't we? We want the service we pay for and we want it consistently. And that's the real trick here. Can you consistently deliver to a good quality? And do you know that, or do you think that? Are you numerically measuring that? So we've gone through the 4 areas of mastery. I want you now to grab those phones again and give yourself a score of 1 to 10 on each area of mastery. So destination mastery, that's our planning side, how much we're thinking ahead of what we want our business to create. Money mastery, are we managing the financials proactively? Time, are we very conscious about where we spend our time? Delivery, are we sure we're delivering? Do we know we're delivering a consistent experience, time in, time out? So this is going to be really interesting to see where people are at. People who might have just joined, we're having a bit of fun and participation here with Menti. If you pop the www.menti.com at the top of the screen here into your browser, it will ask you for the 8-digit code. Is it 86? I've got mine covered up by my boy. The 8-digit code there. Pop that in and then you'll be able to start voting with us. So good, lots of people voted, so that's interesting. Usually delivery, when I'm doing this one-to-one, delivery is usually the standout strength, but I'm really delighted that money is up there too. So money and delivery seem to be our strongest. Destination and time are usually the laggards, so they are here too. Looks like we've got a peak actually in destination, yes, at about 4, there we go. Whereas money, we've got quite a few of you right at the top. That is so good. And some super effective delivery people, which is great. That's what I expect, because your business is what you do. You tend to start a business in the thing you are really great at, and therefore it's natural. As an owner, delivery is often the first place. It's where you put the most focus. It's the other areas that can get a little bit forgotten. So the thing we most need to do is to get planning, that thinking about where you want to go with your business. Great. So let's go up to niche now. So this is where we make sure that the business is profitable. So the prerequisite for success in our niche layer is to be able to take yourself out of price competition. Now, I often get some sort of puzzled frowns when I get to this bit. Helen, how do we do that? What do you mean? So how many of you are feeling you are in a really tough price competition place? Because the secret to getting out of that price competition is to make sure you are being or doing something that is different. That's key for a niche. You need to be different, but it has to be worth paying more for. I do have a number of conversations with people where they go, oh, well, I'm doing this and this, it's different. It's like, I'd expect that. That's what I'm paying. That's base level. That's not worth paying more for. So make sure you're being or doing something different. And sometimes before we can go any further, we actually need to stop and work on being very clear about what your niche is, so you can pull yourself out of that price competition. That's a whole nother webinar, so we'll assume we've done some work there and we'll move on into looking at the sales and marketing side. So the key to sales and marketing in particular, well, both actually, is religiously testing and measuring. Any marketer will tell you like 80% of marketing doesn't work. We need to find the 20% that does as quickly as possible without spending any money on all the things that don't. The way we do that is testing and measuring, it's experimenting. Did it work or not? Did it bring us more leads? Did it help more people move through our sales conversion process? So I'm curious to find out, and I thought it'd be interesting for you as a group to see how are you testing and measuring at the moment. So in the Menti box, just type in a little short phrase, and you can do this as many times as you can. So those of you who are doing lots of test and measuring, let's have lots of ideas. And those of you who are sitting there going, oh, Helen, I've never really measured what I've done, then have a look at what's coming up on the screen. Have a think about what you could start measuring. What would be the first thing to start measuring to know how effective your sales and marketing actually is? So let's see, let's get some typing going in. What are you currently testing and measuring? LinkedIn engagement, great. Whoever put LinkedIn engagement, how are you measuring that? Is that number of likes, number of comments, what's going on there? Google Ads, fantastic, because Google Ads gives you a whole load of stats just there. A and B testing, perfect. That's exactly how we get going without spending too much money before we know it works. Pay-per-click.
Helen, sorry, could I just interrupt? I've been thrown out of the meeting, but now I can't get back in again. I'm trying to relaunch it, but the whole thing went blank, and now I can't get back in. I'm really sorry.
Because you're talking to me.
The whole screen's gone now.
The whole screen has gone?
Yeah, it took me to an advert for getting fit on Zoom. I'm really sorry to interrupt.
Debbie,
shall I just listen?
Debbie, if you leave the room and then come back in again, I'll admit you back in and see if that works.
Thank you very much. Sorry, guys.
No problem.
No worries. Thanks for raising that. We don't want to have people seeing a blank screen. Oh, great. Somebody's getting info on the source of the lead, so you know where they're coming from, and adding that to your CRM. That way you can see what's happening. Great. Tracking webinar attendees. Fantastic. Exactly. There are quite a few nothings here. So people who've got nothing here, have a look at the other ones here. Website, finding out, absolutely. Key piece, how did you find us? If you're doing a lead magnet, so people are clicking details to get it, a piece of information, a checklist, a piece of value, make sure you're asking where they're coming from. Delivery against a scheme of work, great, is that successful or not? Email marketing, if you're doing that through a MailChimp or a HubSpot or whatever, that will tell you open rates, click rates, etc., which is hugely useful. So lots of things happening here. I hope you've all either got something you should start measuring, you've maybe seen a different idea, or some of you might be sitting there with a pat on the back, but keep measuring. And my other tip is if you're getting some good high measures, your conversion rate, if you like, is nice and high, then go earlier in the process, and that will lower it and give you a more stretch to focus on further improvements. So now we're measuring our sales and marketing, I'm going to introduce you to a totally different way of looking at these kind of numbers, which are our 5 ways of growing the business. So most business owners think about, if they think about any numbers, these are the 3 that they think about, which is how many customers have you got, what's your revenue, and how much profit are you making? So let's just start, just pop in the chat box. Are you measuring these 3 things? If we're measuring nothing, let's hope actually you meant from a financial point of view, we've got these things measured. The one that sometimes drops off here is how many customers have you actually got? So measuring customers is a really good one to add if you don't already know this. So let's just pop in the chat box. Have you got these 3, good? Are they good to go? Perfect. If not, pop it there. Yeah, I need to start tracking whichever one it is. Now these are interesting to track, but actually see these as outcomes. So so here you can see here, my levers to profit, the outcomes are the customers, the revenue, and the profit. They're in the red. In the blue, these are the things that lead to that. So first 2 levers we've got are the number of leads you're getting in. So what is your marketing bringing in? The number of inquiries you're getting in multiplied by your conversion rate, how many of those you're converting to actually purchasing from you and being live customers. So the number of customers you've got is an outcome of how many leads you got in through the marketing and how many you converted through your sales process. Is that fair? That gives us your number of customers. Your revenue is an outcome of how many times on average those customers have a transaction with you, how many times they purchase with you, and what's the average value of each of those purchases. And that multiplied together will actually give you your revenue. Now, no accountant is ever going to explain your revenue by that in that way, but it's a very helpful way when you're looking at growing your business of looking at how your revenue works. So if I just explain that principle, if say we were a restaurant, the number of transactions on average per customer would be the number of times a customer comes back on average in a year, say. So maybe they come once a quarter, so they come back 4 times in a year. And then the average value sale is on average, how much do they spend each time they come back? £100. Those two things multiplied together, the number of customers times by how many times they transact, times by the value will give us our revenue. Our profit is an outcome of the revenue that we get in times our profit margin, which is driven by our costs over our revenue. So whilst we're looking at our customers' revenue and profit, they're the outcome. It's far more interesting and profitable to focus on the 5 blue elements. So let's use some real numbers here as an example. So let's say we've got a professional services business. Over the year, you can do this on a monthly basis, a quarterly basis. For those attached to education, you might do it on a termly basis. Today, we're just going to look at it on an annual basis. So say we've got 240, our marketing is bringing in 240 leads for our professional services business. We're sitting at a conversion rate of 25%. So that means we're bringing on board 60 customers from those leads. We're professional services, maybe we're a marketing agency. We've got a monthly retainer going on, so they're going to have 12 transactions a year, 1 per month. And the average sale is £2,000 for each of those transactions. So we've got 60 customers times 12 transactions times £2,000. That's giving us a revenue of 1,440,000. We're starting at a profit margin of 25%, so we've got £360,000 profit. Following the maths, if this is a little bit bamboozling for you, or you're sitting there going, oh my goodness, I don't know what transaction is in my business, don't worry. It can be a little complex to just work it out the first time through. And I'm very happy. I offer a free call, a Zoom for anybody who comes on our webinar. Maybe just put in the chat box now, help with 5 ways. And we'll get on a one-to-one Zoom in the next week or so, and we'll work that out for you. So this is where the fun begins, is we know our starting point. Now we want to start using our niche strategies. So we have over 360 different ways of increasing your profits through these 5 levers. So first off, we want to look at the number of leads. How can we increase these? So we're a professional services company. Now, a lot of you, I imagine on the call, get a certain amount of business by word of mouth. Is that true? Now, my big question here, is that proactive word of mouth or reactive word of mouth? Are you waiting for them to come in, or are you helping people refer to you? What if you put in a couple of proactive referral strategies? Let's add to that, maybe you're going to build one really effective strategic alliance with another business who have a similar target audience, but non-competing business. If we did those 2 things, do we think we could increase the number of leads by 10%? So if we're adding 10% to 240, that's just adding 24. Across the year, that's 2 a month. Not a huge number, agree? What about, we'll move on to our conversion rates. This is how effective we are at converting those leads into sales. Now, the most impactful thing normally to start with a business that I find makes the biggest difference is getting super clear on your sales process. Now, the higher value your product or service, the more steps are needed in the sales process. So the wisdom says it's typically about 7 steps from a cold lead through to a sale. During the pandemic, it went up to 11. I suspect it's gone back down again now. But do you have at least a 7-point sales process where you're taking people from one stage to the next to the next? If we put that in, I can guarantee your conversion rate is going to go up by 10%. So it go up from 25% to extra. It's not adding 10% onto it. It's not 35%. We're multiplying it by 10%. So it's adding an extra 2.5%. So it goes to 27.5%. We can see these building here. When we multiply that through the higher number of leads to the higher conversion rate, we end up at 72.6 customers. So we've got an extra 12 customers already. We're then going to increase the number of transactions. We're going to sell some additional services to them. And increasing our average sale. Well, what's the easiest way to increase your average sale? Put your prices up. Now, there's a lot of, I hope almost everybody has put up their prices this year because every price has been going up and goodness only knows what it's going to do now. Yeah, our petrol station put it up 10p overnight this week. And I expect it's going up again probably in about 2 days' time. But make sure you're moving your prices along. Occasionally I come, people go, oh, I haven't put them up since I started, especially services, because you haven't got the cost of goods coming in to force you to do it. So keep moving those prices up. Everything else is going up. People would expect it's not going to be abnormal to put your own prices up. How else can we increase the average value sale? Have you got some higher price point products? If you don't have the more premium end, people can't buy it. Do you need to add some premium services there? Bulk buying, that's putting up your average sale. So there's lots of different ways we can do that. Putting a couple of those in place, can you imagine that's going to get you a 10% increase? So we've now done 4 10% increase on the number of leads, the conversion rate, the number of transactions, the average value sale. Look what that's done to our revenue. It's actually a 46% increase in revenue, taking us up to 2.1 million. Let's look at your profit margins. When did you last go through all your costs with a fine tooth comb? In fact, by just adding to your volume through the new customers and putting your prices up, mechanically moves your profitability up, as long as you're not driving your costs up to the same extent. If we keep the costs flat, you'll by default have a higher profit margin. But look at those costs. Look at those subscriptions are a killer. You sign them up and then you realize actually you're not using that extra functionality anymore. So let's look at what we can do between price up, cost down. Can we get a 10% increase there? When we find strategies to deliver 10% increases on our 5 levers, look what we've done to our profit here. It's a 61% increase in profit. Anybody looking for a bit of a 61 increase in profit? Would that make a difference to your business? Because if we're looking for a business that can work without you, it absolutely has to be a profit generating machine. Because quite frankly, I would only want a business that works without me if it can still pay me, although I'm not working. So we need to get the profits flowing. So having had that little tour of the 5 ways there, back up with your phones. Which are the 2 biggest opportunities for you? Is it getting the marketing working better so you've got more leads coming in? Is it improving your sales process so your conversion rate goes up? Do you need to focus actually on getting more from your current customers, either getting them coming back and spending more, or do you need to be giving higher value products, putting your prices up? Or actually, do you need to be sweating that profit margin so that you get the rewards you deserve from the level of revenue you've got? So I've got a lot of you on the number of leads. Now, the downside of the number of leads is that's actually the lever that needs the most investment, because that's where we tend to spend the most money, is on our lead generation. Conversion rate, oh, that's made a late return up there. That's good. Come on, we've got 31 people on the call and only 18, 19 responses. Let's get them in. Conversion rate is a great place to start, because generally it's your skill and training. It doesn't need particular investment. It needs focus, it needs practice, it needs thinking, but that doesn't cost. It costs effort, not money. So that's a great place, particularly if you're in the hard yard zone or the startup zone. Average sale value and number of transactions are great places to work, because you're doing that with existing customers. If you're new in a startup, you haven't got much to work with there, so you do have to work on your leads and conversion rate. Profit is actually, working on your profit margin is the first place to start, because it's in your control. So that is, and it multiplies everything else you do subsequently. So you've all identified, great, we've got 23 responses there. You've got a couple of things, write those down in your notebook so you know what you want to work on. Again, we can have a call afterwards, we can look at how you can get started on those elements. Conscious of time, I'm going to move us forward. Leverage is all about getting the enterprise working. It's the works bit of our sentence. How can it be super effective? They're there, it's about putting in place things that make the whole process far more smooth and elegant, saving you stress, time, energy, and money, doing more with less. This starts with being super clear about what you're about, having a very clear vision and mission and culture, because if you're going to systemize things and put them into a process, that process needs to reflect who you are as a business and where you're going. You can't have you know, a process and people operating in a contrary way to the way you want your culture. We then need to have organization charts so we know who's doing what. The last thing you want is two people duplicating, crossing over accountability. So we need to be super clear. What are people's responsibilities? Who's responsible for what? Who's accountable for what in your organization? Are they clear? Have they got positional contracts which define that? Positional contracts with KPIs for the individuals? Have we got our KPIs for the business? And then when we've got that in place, we can get into the nit-grit nub of this whole area of systemizing, which is having these, I say systems, as in it might be checklists, it might be process flows that enable us to repeatedly deliver consistently for our customers, repeatedly get our financials measured, repeatedly support and our teams. And then our management systems need to be the right scale. You know, what we could start our financials as a startup on Excel, that's probably very appropriate. When you're running a couple of million turnover business, that's not appropriate. We need to be on some cloud-based automated, you know, zero QuickBooks type of thing. Ditto, you know, we can start listing our leads on Excel. We need to move to a proper CRM, customer relationship management system. We can start sending the odd email directly from our email. We want to move to a mailing system, not least because it gives us far more data for our KPIs. So the thing is, though, when you get into management systems and how-to systems, we want to be systemizing it the best way we know how to do it, which is why we do the delivery mastery first and we do our niche first. We don't want to spend hours putting in place a complicated sales process into our HubSpot deal structure, for example, if we're going to keep changing it because we haven't found the best way yet. So that's why we do this at this stage in the process. And it does really have such an impact when we do have clear systems. It's not the most exciting part of growing a business. Many people find, oh, I've got to do this. But Atul Gawande, I don't know if anybody knows this guy. He's a very, very inspiring leader. He's a doctor, a medic, done some fascinating studies, particularly in India. I think he's actually American, but he's done his studies in the Indian healthcare system and takes it across. Loads of great content on YouTube. He's done some great TEDx talks as well. Better is possible for everyone, and he's really takes this to making it simple. It doesn't take genius, it does take diligence. It takes moral clarity. It takes ingenuity. How are you going to measure it? How are you going to track it? How are you going to define what you need to do? And it takes a willingness to try. We need to get started on putting in place our leverage systems, and you will reap the benefits, and your clients will reap the benefits. So then, and only then, do we really want to start expanding our team. And you might be going, golly, Helen, there's a lot of work to do before we get to team. The reason is, when we've done mastery, niche and leverage, before we go big on team, we can bring on board team in the most effective way. When we've gone through leverage, we've got our how-to manuals, we've defined the best way of doing everything in our business, or if we take a vertical slice through, we've defined the best way of doing that particular role, then we're hiring somebody who can turn the handle of that position description. We're not hiring somebody with the capability to work it all out, which means we don't have to go for that peak salary level. If we can go for somebody who's got the capability to turn the handle of it and repeat it as we've done, as we've discovered the best way to do it is, then it's a lower salary level. It means there's more people in our selection funnel, there's more people at that capability level. We can better select on attitude because there's that many poor people with skill, and that is fundamental to having a strong team, is selecting on attitude. You can train skills, you cannot train attitude. Good luck to you. You know, people come with a certain set of values and an attitude, and you need to have the right one for your business. So that's why, now, as I say, reality is many businesses need team as you go. So we take a vertical slice, but don't go huge until you've got through leverage. And the team bit, in my experience, is what makes or breaks business growth. And it's certainly what moves you from the hard yards to the power up, is getting the right team in place. And it's critical when it comes to having a business that can work without you. Why? Because you're no longer in it. So it all starts with you, the owner. As the owner, you have to be demonstrating the leadership. Only you are going to be as passionate, you are going to be the most passionate about your business. You've got the insights about what your business needs to succeed. And you're the one who are going to encourage, attract the team. So your leadership is key. As a business owner, often, especially when you're in that hard yards beginning stage, your focus is pulled in so many ways. If you've got team, yes, you need to deal with them, you know that, but actually the customers often get a bigger grab of your time. And then the business, because you're worrying, can I, you know, what's the cash flow like? Can I actually pay the payroll this month? What are my payables? You're worrying about, is the business going? What do I need to do? We've got to order stuff in. Where's the next new business coming from? It's pulling you in all directions. And what the big unlock here is when the owner really focuses on the team. Get the right people on board for your business with the right attitude and the skills, the minimal skills that are needed to do the job, and then you train and invest. Your role in motivating and engaging that team is key. And when they are, and they've got the training and they know what they're doing and they've got the systems to follow, you can entrust the team to look after your customers, because the team know what they're doing, they've got the skills, they're going to be giving great service. They're going to be delighting your customers. When your customers are happy, they're going to keep coming back for more. You don't need to have so many coming in at the top of the funnel through your marketing and sales when you've got happy customers who keep repeat buying. And guess what? Happy customers refer. They'll bring more business to you. So the customers, when the team are looking after the customers well, the customers look after the business because they're repeat buying, they're bringing in the revenue. The business then is in a position to look after you, the owner, with the dividends and the profit that you want. The unlock is the team, is you, the owner, focusing on the team. And I know in the thick of it, the thing that typically gets put on the back burner a little bit is the team. And that's the beginning of a decreasing circle here, a vicious circle. You need to, because otherwise you end up servicing all the customers, not the team, and that is a fast way to a nervous breakdown, quite frankly. So how do we do this? I'm going to come on to that in a second, but let's just see where you are at, actually. Where are you at the moment? Back on your mentees. Are you still on the tools, delivering on the tools would be actually doing the consultancy if you're a consultancy. Maybe you're physically on the tools if you're a building business. Have you managed to get off the actual core delivery of your business, but you're now in the other jobs in the business? People go, oh yeah, no, I'm now working fully on the business. I'm doing the sales and marketing. No, you're doing the sales and marketing job, but that is one step better than being on the tools. And great, we've got somebody who's made up to being on the business. And they on the business, when I'm talking about, are you working purely on the business? This is the strategic elements. This is doing the plans, doing the 5-year plan, looking outside. You're looking at what the competitors are doing. You're looking at economic outlook. Are you looking at what are the next products that are going to be coming into your portfolio? So you're not in the here and now, you're looking ahead for the business. Okay, so we've got quite a few of you still on the tools. So, and actually we've got more of you on the tools than startups, and startups you kind of almost always start on the tools. So yeah, some of you need to find a way to start bringing on board other people and giving yourself more time to focus. As I say, the last bit before you work purely on the GM role or on the business, the bit that tends to be the last piece that leaves you is the sales. Typically the owner has the best credibility, the most conviction behind the product, and therefore they are still in the sales to quite a far extent. But for the business to work without you, you've got to get other people successfully doing your sales and your marketing as well as being on the tools. So some of you got a bit of journey to go here. That's fine, because we're going to be planning how to do that. So for those of you who need to get others doing that, we need to start building your winning team. As I say, it starts with the strong leadership. We need to have a common goal. Now, this is really interesting because as an owner, if I said to you, have you got a goal? I bet a number of you would say, yes, Helen, my goal is X amount of profit this year. Now, that is hugely motivating for you as a business owner. For your team, less so. Am I going to really bust a gut to help my boss get nice and go on a fancy holiday? Probably not. So what is the goal that's really going to engage the team? It's far more around purpose. It's far more around the experience you're delivering for your clients or for your community or the world at large. What is it you deliver? In my world, we deliver growth for our local SME businesses. That's much more motivating than lining my pockets, unfortunately. Unfortunately, when you've got your common goal, we need to be thinking about what are the rules of the game. So what do I mean here? Let's think of sports for a minute. Let's take, say, a game of tennis. There are rules in tennis. Yes, we've got the court. The ball has to land within the court, and if it's singles versus doubles, it's different lines down the tram lines. We have to serve from behind the back court. If your foot's on the line or beyond it, then it's a fault. You get two doubles. You get a fault or a double fault, and then you've lost the point. Yeah, there's lots of rules to tennis. What are the rules in your business? Do you have a rule about we pick up the phone after 3 rings after we've completed a project? We always phone back and find out how it's working for them. Do we have a rule about how people dress, about where documents are kept so everybody else can find them? There's all sorts of rules about how you are, how your team need to be when they're operating in your business. There's ways that you want that deliver the expectation to your customers and that deliver the culture that you want. So if you haven't got rules of the game defined for your business, that's something to do. You also need an action plan. How are you going to get from here to there? How are you going to achieve that goal? What are the steps along the way? And the team need to know if it's in your head, it's really difficult for them to deliver on it. So have you got a clear communicated action plan around what's happening this quarter, this week? And when you've got that really clear, you then have to support risk taking. What do I mean by this? It's one of the most difficult things for an SME owner to do, because the chances are you've done most of the roles within your business as you grew it. As I say, most startups start with you doing everything. So letting go and letting your team get on and do it without micromanaging can be a real challenge. But you know what? Micromanaging is the biggest disengager for your team. That's what's going to drive them away and create retention issues. So you have to give them the knowledge, the boundaries with which to operate, the action plan that needs delivering, and let them get on with it. We also need 100% participation and inclusion. Now, it's not that I'm indecisive here. I mean both words. I think you as the leader need to include them. We need to invite them in. We need to get their input, their contribution. But our team members need to step forward and participate. It's a two-step dance, that. And finally, we need clear learning and development plans in place, because goodness me, things keep evolving and moving forwards, whether it's technology, it's product sets, it's ways of doing things, you know, everything keeps changing, so we have to keep nimble. If you're not moving forwards in your learning, you will be ending up going backwards. So you can see we've now covered our first 4 steps. And quite frankly, that's where most of the work happens. We then, when we've got the last person in, our GM is the last person we put in, then we can step back and enjoy the synergy and results. So synergy is where we can replicate what we've done. So we, for example, if you were having a restaurant, you've got one working beautifully in one town, you can now open it. We've got a great in Beaconsfield, we're now going to open in Marlow. As a service business, you might open a different part of the country, because you can kind of reach out to a radius of 30 miles, but then you need a different part. If your business is online, then you've probably got global reach from the get-go, or certainly English language speaking reach. So your synergy might be taking it into an adjacent area, but you've got the same client base, you still know how to market to them, etc. And then the results is looking at, with these multiple streams of profit coming in, how you're going to manage that wealth. Happy days. So we're coming to the top of our hour. I love this quote from Karren Brady. The world is divided into 3 types in people in business. Those who make things happen, those who watch things happen, and those who wondered what just happened. Which one are you? You've just spent an hour together with me. So what actions are you going to take now? So I would strongly urge you, just look through the notes that you have written. Even pop in the chat box, what is the top action you're going to do? Because you know what, when we share something, we gain accountability for that. If there's anything that we have covered this morning that I can help clarify for you, please just put in the chat box, 5 ways help, put in one-to-one, please, and we'll set up pro bono, half an hour with you, and we'll work through that and see how that works in your business. So Simon here will be, has been on the call now. I'm also going to stop for questions in a second, but Simon will be in touch and we'll set that up for you. So Simon, have we had any questions as we've gone along that I should be answering now?
No questions, lots of engagement and lots of note taking. No questions at the moment. Okie dokie.
Anybody got a question they want to answer? I think we've got probably about 30 seconds. I've timed that to perfection.
Just on that, if anyone has any questions, I mean, I'll probably be in touch in the next week or so. And if anyone has any questions, we can always grab us on LinkedIn, on email. We are here to serve and help. So any questions, you can always get in touch with us anytime.
Fantastic. Thank you, Simon. So keep hold of those notes, reread them, star the actions you're going to take, because it is really critical. Otherwise, you know, to get best use of the hour you've just invested here, because I know you've made a choice to be here rather than be doing something else, make sure you get the value by making some actions. And I look forward to catching up with you soon. Have a great rest of the day. Thank you so much for your participation, and see you on another webinar soon. We have a number coming up. Take care then. Bye for now.